My name is Dr. James Lyons Weiler. My friends call me Jack, and I'm the CEO of the Institute for Pure and Applied Knowledge in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
What does that mean?
Well, it means I spend a lot of time doing research that won't be ever funded by the federal government because we're funded by you, the public.
And what do you do?
Well, we look for evidence to demonstrate proof of the mechanisms of disease, specifically lately diseases that are induced by vaccines. Um, but we're also interested in broader questions our goal is to reduce human pain and suffering through knowledge.
So, what, other than the injury that I'm seeing, what other things do you believe vaccines cause? Other injuries, what kind of things? Disease?
Well, yeah, so the scientific literature is filled with reports and side effects of vaccines. Serious adverse events would include, in my view, most of the autoimmune disorders that you know about. So, Lou Gehrig's disease, most likely, multiple sclerosis, most likely. Yeah. So it's tough for me
What
to
about
use the
cancer?
word
What about cancer?
belief.
People are saying today the rise in cancer. There's no coincidence.
Right.
Childhood cancer, breast cancer, whatever it may be.
Well, I'll tell you, Polly, if an autoimmune disorder attacks a tumor suppressor gene, which is there to protect you from getting tumor, and it attacks the tumor suppressor protein and it knocks it out from its function, there's probably going to be an increased risk of all types of cancer.
Are you ever frightened for your safety?
I don't like to think about that, you know. I think they would not want to come after me because then it would make my book a bestseller, right? That would be terrible. I'm a
Can you
terrible
imagine?
target.
You'd have a great life because it's not
Gracie.
saying you'll have a great life
Right.
because the book sales will go through the roof. Anyway,
Right.
just joking. So tell us about your book.
Right, so the environmental and genetic causes of autism is the product of reading 2,000 research articles on autism. It's not a book about vaccines per se, but all the evidence of the adverse events that can be caused by vaccine that lead to a diagnosis of autism is presented. It's really I took the approach of if I was a geneticist and we're told that there's a genetic component to autism, how would I go about studying it? And so when you're a geneticist and you look at things like loss of speech or speech ability, intellectual ability, if you look at seizures, if you look at all of the different facets of autism, social ability and so on, what genes contribute to those features in people in general? And is there any evidence that there's an interaction between the genes that might influence these traits and those traits going awry due to environmental factors?
Now, do you have a copy of the book on you now?
No, I
Show
don't. It
everyone.
hasn't been printed yet. It's printing on November 8th.
Oh,
Yeah. But I'll be
Okay.
sure to get you a copy.
well, can we have some for our tour next year? We'll sell them for you. We sell really well.
Oh, absolutely.
We like to educate our people.
Absolutely. I hear, yeah, there's a big demand for it. People say that people like to say, some people who are dismissive of the vaccine autism link like to say, well, autism is just genetic. It's just a genetic disease. And there's no other genetic disease that I know of where there's hundreds of genes that contribute overall to the what they call the phenotype or the characteristics. And yet there's so few specific genes, that could cause a purely genetic form of autism. Those types of variations in the population are so rare; it's almost impossible, very unlikely for them to come together. You need 2 or 3 mutations to get purely genetic autism. Very, very bad luck, but. Most of the variation is most of the risk is due to environmental susceptibility genes, which makes a great deal of sense in everything else that we're seeing. So.
Yeah, and plus the fact that our children are born perfectly fine for the first year or 18 months of their life. And you can't have a genetic, oh my gosh, diarrhea at 18 months. Doesn't make sense.
Not at all.
None of it
And you
makes
can't
sense.
have a genetic exponential growth in disease in the population. It doesn't work that way. No. And if you look at the pedigrees, the people, the grandparents and the parents don't have autism or don't have a diagnosis of on the spectrum, but the children and the last generation does, and that's definitely an environmental disease. The largest studies that looked at environment versus genetics said that the liability is 50% genetic and 50% environment, but I believe that it's no more than 50% genetic and at least 50% environment, because none of these studies that are done look at the interaction between genes and environment. So geneticists, when they do studies, they're going to find genes, right? They're only going to find genes. If they never bother to look at environmental variable, all they're ever going to find is genes. And so they have to do more sophisticated studies if we're going to describe liability. But I think we know what causes autism. I think, and the book is going to be an eye-opener for a lot of people in the profession.
What do you think it's going to take for this nightmare to end?
Good question. I think it's a critical mass problem. I really do. I think not just more people that become aware and educated, but as more people become vaccine injured, it's going to become undeniable. It's the way I say it is, think about it, it's just a matter of mathematics. It's just a matter of time. As CDC wants to add more and more vaccines to the schedule, there's hundreds of vaccines to the schedule. Then we're assured to see further increases of cases. And also these vaccines can have an epigenetic component, and so there's compound factors from generation to generation. And so there are people right now that are saying, no, vaccines don't cause autism, and they're mistreating people who are vaccine injured for trying to share their wisdom and knowledge from their personal experience of suffering, and they're chiding them, and yet they're very at an increased risk every generation of having vaccines. So if we just let things go the way that they are, then we'll see it as a matter of course, as a matter of time. But we're not happy to let things go the way that they are, because we want... IPAC exists. My institute exists to reduce human pain and suffering through knowledge. And so we're actually putting together a lawsuit. It's a very special type of lawsuit to hold the individuals in the CDC accountable for not doing the job that they were supposed to do, not the fraud. The fraud is important,
Right.
and that's real. And I'll go on record that it's fraud. They changed the data, they removed the data, they overanalyzed the data, they analyzed it 10 different ways to get the result that they want. What we did was, in part because I read 2,000 studies on autism, what we are doing is we're saying they should have read 2,000 studies on autism. They should have paid attention to the rest of the science, the bulk of the science. They haven't done that. They formulated their public health policy on the basis of their decision to spread vaccines, to increase vaccination rate, not to actually bring science based into public health policy. And they were told by Congress to look at the totality of the evidence, and we believe that they have not done that.
And when you say we, who's we?
Everybody who is supporting the CDC Accountability Project. We have a great number of supporters.
I know you do. I know that was a bit of a leading question.
Right.
And I know that you probably can't answer that.
You're sweet.
Right. But I thought I'd give it a go anyway, for behalf of my Periscope peeps.
Well, there is a CDC Accountability Project, and if you go to ipa-knowledge.org and you want to be a part of this, we can certainly use the help. We have retained Jim Turner as the attorney. We're about to launch a huge public campaign blitz to get the information out there. We're not going to reveal the legal theory behind it, but the legal theory has been vetted by Mary Holland, a legal scholar at New York University.
Right, tell them where to go one more time.
Sorry?
Where can they go to find out more?
Oh,
about this or help?
ipa-knowledge.org. Or you can just Google my name, James Lyons Weiler, or look at the CDC Accountability Project. We're going to be making a complaint, and we're going to be making sure that we have the legal force behind us to make sure that the CDC handles this complaint appropriately.
If you could put 5 people in jail for all of this, which 5 people would you put in jail?
Well, out of deference for Brian Hooker, I think jail is too kind. But let's start with Frank DiStefano, who should have insisted that those results be in there. Let's include Colleen Boyle.
Good choice. Down
Right?
she goes.
I would love to see Julie Gerberding.
Down she goes.
Down she goes.
Everyone's going to have nice sweet dreams tonight, okay? You're just having 2 more to go.
No, but you have to understand, I'm not looking to put anyone in jail.
Just to make
just for fun. Okay. Let's see.
Can we put Paul Offit in jail, please?
Who?
Paul Offit, please.
Oh, just anybody?
Fine.
Can I start jailing people?
You can jail anyone, okay? Paul Offit, please. Oh, Pan, we're done.
Dr. Offit spread such terrible misinformation about vaccines, and in my book, The Environmental Genetic Causes of Autism, I have a reading list for him. In fact, I have 2 reading lists for him. There's a reading list. It's the part of the chapter is Dr. Offit, your aluminum neurotoxicity reading lists are ready. Paging Dr. Offit. There are the studies before his book where he says that aluminum is a nutrient and it's good for the fetus. And the studies after his book, in case he's still involved in vaccines in any way. And, Dr. Pan really should have the guts enough to just sit down with Del and have the conversation. Really.
No.
Really.
It's really unbelievable. If you're so right in everything, we
Right.
all know that if you know your subject and you're right in it, of course, debate me. Let's do this.
Right. So if Dr. Pan ends up in jail, hopefully he'll use his time and he'll call Del.
Or Andy.
Andy's a great guy.
Who's the doctor?
He is.
He's always going to be a doctor.
Right.
Away,
Yes, Dr. Andy Wakefield, have fun in Italy if you're watching this.
I doubt he's watching it. It's the middle of the night.
If you ever get to watch this, please have some nice Italian coffee for us.
Yeah, that's what I said. Bring some nice coffee, nice leather Italian jackets for the Vaxxed team. I gave him a glass of water.
And I would love to see a branch of the Institute for Pure and Applied Knowledge start in Italy, so find me some colleagues over there.
Alright, so we'll remember to mind it. Now, is there anything else you want to say to these lovely people?
What I want to say is
Where do they get your book, by the way?
Oh, they can go
to our
to
Vaxxed Christmas list.
Amazon.com and look for the environmental and genetic causes of autism, or go to jameslyonsweiler.com, or they can go to their local independent bookseller and ask for it. The environmental and genetic causes
Okay,
of
when's it
autism.
out again?
November 8th is the first print.
November 8th. Okay, so where can we order some? Because we've got a big party on November the 17th.
I'll talk with Tony, and I'll put you guys in contact with him to get
I know Tony.
some. Yes.
Tony Lyons.
Tony Lyons of Skyhorse Publishing. You can go right to his website.
Right, so we'll get some at the Vaxxed events for people.
Right.
Okay,
So, parting thought?
let's go.
Polly, I have to say, I was watching you outside from the van, and I have a picture of you interviewing the families, and I have to say you're an angel. Everything that you're doing,
And Joshy.
Josh, and everyone on
And
the team.
Anu. No, because these people don't get. I feel bad that people think me and Josh and Anu and everybody are here too.
You have an amazing team, yes, but Polly, your dedication and your love for children around the world is outstanding, and I thank you for it.
That's very kind. Thank you. I do love.
He already
love 'em. I hate
he
these-
thanked me outside earlier.